On the Switch 2, Pokemon Pokopia has been the best-selling game for almost 3 weeks straight at this point. On the Switch 1, the 22-year-old FireRed and LeafGreen ROMs have been outselling every new release for nearly a month. And while Nintendo's stock is still down 31% in the last 6 months, it did have a little bump of positivity off of all this good news. So by every possible metric, Pokemon is having the best start to a year that they've had in a very long time. But I'm afraid they're learning all the wrong lessons. Pokopia is a game key card that is being massively undersupplied, creating artificial scarcity, and FireRed and LeafGreen are $20 ROMs that still don't have home support. And it doesn't stop at the video games either, because Pokemon card scalping is still at an all-time high despite clear solutions being available. So we have a lot to talk about, because Pokemon's recent success feels like it's at the expense of the consumer, and it's very uncomfortable that they're being rewarded for that. So let's jump right in here, folks, and I think the best place to start is over on the Pokemon Center website, where Pokemon Pokopia is simultaneously back in stock and sold out, which is confusing to say the least. When you click on the listing here, it shows, of course, the image itself says back in stock, but the game is, of course, not actually in stock. And this kind of seems to be the trend everywhere. This was reported over on Twitter by Nintendo. On March 20th, they said stock update, Pokemon Pokopia is starting to be more available at retailers again. And then shortly after, they responded saying it's kind of wild that not even Nintendo can keep this game in stock right now. And this is, of course, the Pokemon Center website that we just took a look at. Now, of course, as you guys know, Pokemon Pokopia has been quite a hit for the Switch 2, selling over 2.2 million copies in 4 days. That is both physical and digital versions, and really a majority of that is just going to be the digital copies, because even if we take a look at the Famitsu sales for the first week of Pokemon Pokopia, we'll see that it sold 541,000 copies, which is kind of insane, clearly lifting the Switch 2 adoption rate for that week. And then we take a look at the following week sales, it's down to 117,000, but this is very likely just due to supply constraints for the physical copies. I say that in quotes because there does not exist a physical copy of Pokopia. You can't hold the game in your hands, it's purely downloads only. But the reason we're talking about it here is because Famitsu tracks physical sales, and of course game key cards are sold at retail as if they were physical copies. And so this is really all that we can kind of keep track of besides Nintendo's first reported 4 days. But we can see here that the Switch 2 sales for the second week are still pretty high. I mean, it had about a 23% drop week over week, but I mean, that's still really good. I mean, I guess you could argue that maybe Monster Hunter Stories pulled in some more Switch 2 sales for sure. But even if we take a look at the March 22nd Switch 2 eShop charts, you'll see that Pokopia is still the #1 on the list here, with Legends EA being #4. So the consensus is clear. This game is obviously a success. Lots of people are buying it, and they're trying to buy it physically, but they can't. It's sold out everywhere. And so lots of people are just buying it digitally. And a lot of this is fueled by the hype and the FOMO, right? I mean, people want to get in while it's hot. People want to play the game while everyone is talking about it. I've seen friends talk about how they're buying a Switch 2 just for Pokopia because they're seeing videos and TikToks and everything, and it's everywhere, right? And they want to play it while it's the hot thing. Everyone does. Everyone likes to be a part of something, right? It's what everyone's playing at the moment. And it just kind of sucks that like people can't buy it in the format that they want to. And beyond that, the format that a lot of people would actually prefer doesn't even exist. And this is sort of why it's surprising to me that the game key cards are in such high demand, because frankly, I really think it comes down to the fact that people don't actually know what game key cards are. I've had to explain this to people in recent days regarding Pokopia because they don't even know, right? And this is, I've said this in past videos, but like while a lot of Nintendo fans are physical game collectors, myself included, the more like normie casual audience doesn't even know what that is. They don't know what game key cards are. They don't really care. I mean, maybe if you explain it to them, they'll care, but like really, they think they're actually owning the game when they buy this, and they're not. And so it's like, man, you know, there's such a successful hit game, and yet the option of physical ownership has been stripped stripped from the consumer. We don't actually have that choice, which is unfortunate coming from Nintendo, right? I mean, like, historically, Nintendo has been the company that has offered the game on the cartridge, or in the case of like the Wii U and Wii, it's on the disc, obviously. But when it comes to Pokopia, which is, you know, one of the best selling games on Switch 2 now, and it's also one of the highest rated, right? Like, people are playing and enjoying the game. There's always going to be that small black mark on their reputation when it comes to Pokopia. They were like 90% of the way there, right? Like, there would be nothing to even talk about if this game was a full game on cartridge. It would be like, oh yeah, they released a Pokemon spinoff, everyone loved it, end of story, right? It was just a success, everyone loved that. But instead we have basically artificial scarcity of a game key card. There's no reason that this thing should be out of stock. You don't actually have to like manufacture anything. Like, I know it's a plastic cartridge in a plastic case, but there's not actually data there. You don't need to like source a bunch of memory cards to make this possible. Like, it's just game key cards. And so going back to my first point at the beginning of this video, I'm afraid that Pokemon's going to learn the wrong lesson from Pokopia, in that as long as the casual audience wants to play the game, they don't have to provide physical media any longer. I mean, that's really what people have decided with their wallets. They voted with their wallets here, and that's it, right? I mean, like, really, there's no reason why Winds and Waves should be expected to be on the cartridge. Like, clearly it does not have to be, right? Clearly that is the lesson that they will probably learn from this, which is unfortunate. I hope they don't learn that lesson. I like to actually have physical media, as you guys always see in the back of these videos. I really like physical media. But the other Pokemon game that is still quietly making waves is FireRed and LeafGreen, because FireRed and LeafGreen, despite coming out at the end of February, is still number 1 and 2 on the Switch eShop. As reported by Nintendo Everything, Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen hold off MLB The Show 26. So for those of you that don't know, MLB 26 just came out for the original Switch, and it comes in at number 3 on the Switch eShop, meaning it did not generate more revenue than FireRed or LeafGreen, which is kind of insane. I mean, look, like, third-party sports titles on the original Switch, they're not gonna sell that well, even with the huge install base. Like, it's just not where people play MLB The Show, right? So it's not like this is some crazy headline here, but it is still interesting that like these two 22-year-old games are $20 and they are still outperforming everything, right? And if you guys didn't know, the Nintendo Switch eShop is ranked based on revenue. Okay, it's not ranked on unit sales. So you could look at this and say, oh, well, these games are only $20, so of course they're selling more units than MLB The Show as a full price release. But that's not the case. That's not, you can even, if you have a Switch, you can learn this for yourself. Just scroll all the way down to the bestseller list and it says it right on the bottom. It says, I'll just read it verbatim for you here: top selling titles over the last 3 days based on revenue. Okay, so that means FireRed and LeafGreen aren't just selling a lot of units, they're making a lot of money. Like, they have to sell more than 3 times the number of units to make more revenue than a $60 game, right? I mean, that's just the math. On a $20 game, you have to sell 3 copies to equal a $60 sale. And again, we've talked about FireRed and LeafGreen a lot on the channel, but they don't have anything particularly new about them. I mean, we know home support is allegedly coming at some point. We don't know when. It is not in the game yet. And besides that, really the only difference between this and any other ROM is that they've censored nicknames. Okay, so you can't use profanity in the nicknames. And also, for those that don't know, they actually updated the ROM so that way your progress in FireRed and LeafGreen is actually sent back to Nintendo. So they're actually collecting data about you as you're playing through these 22-year-old ROMs. Nobody cares, right? It's not a big deal that they know that you're 3 badges in, but you know that Nintendo's using this data to figure out how many people bought the games versus how many people completed the games, right? Or how far did people get on average through FireRed and LeafGreen, right? And obviously they want to know this because these games are old, and so they're much slower paced than a lot of the newer games. And so I'm sure they're curious to know if people's attention spans are cooked, if they're not going to actually be able to play them and enjoy them as they remember. And the third and final thing that they added to these games is at the end of the game, you get access to some of the event Pokemon like Deoxys and stuff like that. But besides that, there's no online battling, there's no online trading. Like, these are pretty much just copy and pasted ROMs. And instead of putting them on Nintendo Switch Online for everybody who's already paying for that to get access to, they charge people $20. And like, look, I understand lots of people people don't want to pay for a subscription service to access these games. I totally get that, but they could easily do both, right? They could say, hey, if you have Switch Online with expansion pass, you can play FireRed and LeafGreen. If you don't have it, you could spend 20 bucks for it, and there you go. Now 20 bucks is still arguably a lot for really old ROMs that basically have no quality of life improvements. There's no widescreen support either, right? Like there's just so many things that would have been easy for them to do to justify the price point. They didn't do any of those things. But even price aside, let's say you don't care that it's 20 bucks, there's no getting around the fact that these are pretty lazily copy and pasted ROMs, and they are at the top of the Switch eShop for weeks now, meaning they are generating lots of revenue off of these $20 ports. And so again, we have to ask ourselves, like, what lesson is Nintendo and the Pokemon company learning here, right? Are they going to learn the right lesson? The lesson that they should learn from the success of FireRed and LeafGreen is that, one, they should give us access to the older Pokemon games on new hardware all the time. Two, they should be catering the new Pokemon games to the older fans, not some hypothetical kids that would allegedly be playing it, because Lord knows everyone playing Pokemon right now is not a child. Okay, there hasn't been evidence for that narrative in like 5 years, right? So like anyone who thinks kids are still playing Pokemon just they have no clue they have no clue what the Pokemon fandom is actually like right now. So like Pokemon should be taking that into consideration when they're making their new games. Make the games a little bit more challenging, or maybe add some sort of emotional ambiguity to some of the characters. Their motives are a little bit, make them sketchy, right? Like there's a lot of ways that they could make these games a lot better if they removed the filter of like, oh, these are for 7-year-olds, because they're not for 7-year-olds anymore, clearly. And also they should be learning from the success of FireRed and LeafGreen that the old formula still works really well. People are craving the old school Pokemon experience, and they are putting their money where their mouth is here, right? Those are all the lessons that they should be learning from FireRed and LeafGreen's success. But my worry is that they're going to learn that, hey, everyone bought it for 20, next time we could charge 25 when we release Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. And no, we don't have to do any quality of life improvements to those either. We'll just release them as they are. We don't have to do online battling, no online trading, really nothing. We don't have to do anything, just copy and paste the ROM again, right? Like that's the lesson they're probably going to learn here, and that's really unfortunate. And again, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of this video. It just feels really uncomfortable that Pokemon sees so much success off of delivering what is, I mean, objectively pretty much the laziest port that they could do, right? And I'm not saying that people can't enjoy it. I mean, I recently beat FireRed, like the games are still great. My point is, like, they could have gone above and beyond for the consumer and celebrated these older games, but instead they just were like, yeah, here kid, here's the ROM, it's 20 bucks, right? It's like they didn't have to do anything, and so the consumer just gets the bare minimum. And like, look, you get what you pay for, right? So I mean, if people are going to buy it, then they're only ever going to get the bare minimum, which has kind of been Pokemon's strategy for the last, like, I don't know, when did the Switch come out? It's been like 10 years now, pretty much. And like I said earlier, you know, there has been a little bit of a bump in Nintendo stock as a result of this, but over the last 6 months it's still pretty down. Over the last 1 month it's up 7%. Over the last 5 days it's down 7%, right? So I mean, it's like, you know, it almost is like this bumped it back up to what like the previous high was, and then it like is rejecting at that previous high right now. Maybe it'll pop back up, I don't know, but I mean, it's clear that like investors can see. And like, look, people always like to pretend like Pokemon and Nintendo are like these two completely different companies, and it's like, God, dude. Anyway, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole, but clearly Nintendo investors get excited when Pokemon does well for one reason. It's because they're very intertwined. And then we get to the TCG. Now this was posted 3 hours ago, okay? Drawn over line for Pokemon cards at Madison Best Buy. This is in Wisconsin, okay? A man drew a during an argument while waiting in line for Pokemon cards at a Madison Best Buy, police said. Officers were called to the store on East Springs Drive at around 6:12 a.m. Friday. A 27-year-old man, by the way, like that right there, that's the demographic, okay? Throw out the idea that kids are playing this stuff, throw out the idea that kids are buying the cards or asking for cards. Like, no, these are grown men who've got nothing better to do. This is their occupation, is scalping, okay? Anyway, a 27-year-old man had reportedly set chairs out in front of the store to wait for a Pokemon card release. When another customer moved the chairs, when the line moved, the man got upset and argument started. During the argument, police said the man displayed a gun. Officers reportedly found the gun when speaking to him, and he was arrested for disorderly conduct while armed. Police said the man was also banned from the Best Buy. I sure hope so. I mean, look, I really feel like we need so super severe punishment for this kind of stuff. Like, it's just so embarrassing that as a culture and as a country, like, we just accept this behavior from grown adults. Like, dude, if you pull a over scalping Pokemon cards, I feel like there should just be a new law that says you get minimum 5 years in jail or firing squad. Like, I don't know what else. Like, we need to just make an example out of one person. I know that sounds like barbaric and ridiculous and I'm being too dramatic, and I get that, right? But it's like, what more can we do to like just make sure this should never happen? This should never ever happen. And part of the problem is really the Pokemon company, because they could just print more. I've said this before, it's a no-brainer solution. It takes 0 IQ to arrive at this conclusion. It's the most obvious solution. The only people that are mad at that solution are people who think that Pokemon cards should be an investment opportunity, which obviously it shouldn't be. It is, okay, but it shouldn't be. But this is not where it ends, because Tampa man accused of stealing rare Pokemon card worth over $1,000. This was literally yesterday. This is in Tampa, Florida. 2 Tampa men were arrested for allegedly stealing a rare Pokemon card worth about $1,000 from a Bay Area card shop, according to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. Detectives say Joseph Roque, 36, and Enrique Saucedo, 26, were also linked to a similar theft earlier in the month in downtown St. Petersburg. Again, these are grown men, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely disgusting. Both face grand theft charges, and one suspect also wanted and on unrelated charges before taking into custody. Detectives say the investigation began on March 17th after a Mega Gengar Pokemon card worth about $1,000 was allegedly stolen from a Bay Area card shop. The card was removed from the display case while one of the men distracted the store clerk. They tried to avoid authorities a few days later, but were taken into custody at a Tampa home. And this is at the same time as grown men almost choke each other out over Pokemon cards. This is another incident, by the way. Okay, these are all separate incidences in the last 48 hours. Over the weekend, a video of adults nearly choking each other out in front of a Pokemon vending machine started circulating, and considering there aren't even any kids around trying to buy cards, it's pretty safe to assume these men were trying to buy cards to resell them. Yes, that is the safe assumption. Every single time I've seen people line up for Pokemon cards, I live in New York City, okay? Every time you see it, it's all grown men. There's not even women there. That's how you know these scalpers are pathetic, right? Like, they don't know what women look like anymore. They forgot. They're just sad, lonely losers, right? Like, this is all they have left is Pokemon cards. Now, look, I'm not going to play the whole video, okay? You could see there's a line of, you know, grown men. These are obviously men in their 20s or 30s, but this is what happens when you create artificial scarcity and you prop up the values of a market that frankly is kind of a Ponzi scheme. I mean, really, if they printed more cards, do you think these cards would retain value? No, because there is no inherent value to a Pokemon card. It doesn't do anything. It's just Pokemon decided it's rare, therefore it's rare. But they could, with a flip of a switch, make it not rare and the value goes down. Whereas something like gold or oil, like, these have intrinsic value. They have function in the world. So the market for Pokemon cards is purely hallucinations. It's purely like, it's just the market. It's supply and demand. That's really all it is, right? There's a low supply, and because of that, there's hype around it, which drives up demand artificially even higher than that. A lot of these men don't even, I'll tell you a little secret here, okay? A lot of these men don't even collect cards. They don't even care about Pokemon. They don't even know what the names of the Pokemon are, right? They don't give a shit about any of that. All they care about is the money aspect of this. That's the only reason they're there. Whether it's Pokemon or One Piece or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic or what, the card itself doesn't matter. They'll be on that line regardless. It's just the fact of the matter is that it's Pokemon right now, and it will be forever until Pokemon decides to print more cards, which really they have no obligation to maintain this artificial scarcity and continue to artificially prop up this market that is just based on speculation, right? Besides, the more cards that are available to buy on day one, the more money Pokemon makes, because they see the profits from selling it directly to the retailer or consumer. They don't see the flipped profit that you see on like eBay, right? When you open a pack and you get a card worth $800, that value is not realized by Pokemon. So they'd actually make more money by printing more cards. Sure, the hype would go down, and so it might normalize a little bit. But again, I've covered these topics for months and months and months on this channel, and there's just nothing being done. Pokemon just does not care. They don't care people are getting assaulted. They don't care that people are getting violent. They don't care that guns are being drawn. People are going to die over Pokemon cards, and their inaction is them not caring. Okay, Pokemon does not care if people get beat up, stabbed, whatever. They don't care. Okay, all they care about is the artificial scarcity causing hype to go up, and so more people buy stuff. That's really it. And again, it's been months and months of this, and really, you know, yes, we can point the fingers and laugh at these scalpers because they're losers. They have nothing else to do, right? I mean, you're 36 getting arrested for stealing a Gengar card. Like, you're just a loser. You got nothing else going on. So yes, the problem is the actual criminals, right? Like, this is the actual problem right here. But you're never going to change individuals. You're never going to change people and their criminal tendencies. Okay, so the only thing you can change is to make these cards not worth $1,000. Okay, so the only solution is to have Pokemon print more. You can't just convince people to stop being losers. They're not going to stop being losers. Okay, they've got nothing else to do. Of course they're going to scalp cards and steal stuff and get violent because they've got nothing else going on. What do they have to lose, right? Of course they're going to do that. The only thing that can be done is from Pokemon, they can print more cards and reduce the amount of risk some fans are getting put into. Again, most of these scalpers are not actually Pokemon fans, but some Pokemon fans do try to line up and try to get their hands on some of these cards because they don't want to pay reseller prices, right? And so some Pokemon fans do find themselves occasionally waiting on lines, hoping that maybe they don't have to pay reseller prices, and they're being put at risk because Pokemon just doesn't care about their safety. I mean, there's no question at this point. We've had months and months, and how many incidences, how many times has Moist Critical covered stuff like this, right? Like over the years, it's happened regularly all the time. These are not one-off instances. This is regularly occurring things that happen every single month, basically, at this point. And so Pokemon has months worth of data, evidence, and criminal activity to come to the conclusion that, oh, okay, we should probably do something about this. And they choose inaction. They choose not to do it because they don't care. They don't care about you. So again, we have so many points on the graph here where it's like, man, Pokemon is so successful right now, and yet it's never been worse to be a consumer of Pokemon products, right? You buy Pokopia, oh, the game's not on the cartridge. You don't actually own the game. So inevitably, okay, and people like to sort of meme on this, but again, this is one of those things where all we have to do is wait until I'm right. You know, eventually the Switch 2 servers are going to shut down, and you're going to buy that Pokopia game keycard on eBay in 2039, and you're not going to be able to do anything with it. You won't be able to play Pokopia because it's not on the card, and the server will not be available to download from. We already see this with the Wii and the 3DS. They've already shut down the eShop. They've already shut down the shop for the Xbox 360. Like this is not a hypothetical. This is actually happened and will continue to happen. It is proven, verifiable. It is fact. All you have to do is wait, right? And so eventually the Pokemon Pokopia game key cards will be worthless, and you will not be able to download this game. You will not be able to play Pokopia at some point in the future, period. End of story. Now, it will stay on your hard drive or your solid state drive, the onboard memory. Great, sure, fantastic, until your Switch 2 gets liquid damage, or until the battery expands and damages the hardware, or until there's gonna be something that happens, and over time there will be fewer and fewer copies of Pokopia to play, right? And so the consumer gets screwed here from a physical collector's standpoint. We look at, again, the FireRed and LeafGreen ROMs. It's just a $20 lazy port, no Pokemon home support yet, no online battling, no online trading, no quality of life improvements, no widescreen, no putting it on the Nintendo Switch Online for people already paying. So again, the consumer gets screwed, right? They got the bare minimum, and we look finally at the Pokemon TCG, and you still, after years of this crap, you can't buy cards at a reasonable price without running the risk of getting mugged, beaten up, stabbed, whatever. And these mom and pop game stores are getting robbed because of the value of Pokemon cards. And so it's never been a worse time to be a collector of Pokemon cards, because you can't just buy them. It's insane, right? And so on one hand, we see like, okay, yeah, Pokemon is doing really well right now, but at the expense, literally directly at the expense of the consumer experience. And it's like, man, that feels really crappy, right? Like that just, I feel some type of way about that personally, right? And you know, now that we're at the end of the video, I guess I should kind of address why it's been about 2 weeks since I've posted a video here on the channel. And there's a couple of reasons for that. This past weekend I was in Connecticut. The weekend before that I was in Los Angeles. I've been a busy guy, and then on top of that I've been burnt out, I've been tired, there's been a lot going on, okay? But beyond that, right, there's a couple of other factors. First of all, there hasn't really been much Nintendo or Pokemon stuff to talk about that I'm personally really interested in, right? I know a lot of people think that like the whole point of this channel is like grifting and making money off of whatever, and it's like that's not true. I mean, if this whole channel was just to make money, I wouldn't go 2 weeks without uploading, right? I'd be trying to come up with some BS story to tell you guys every single day. I'd be doing daily uploads, right? So if you guys want to know who's really just doing this for money, look at the channels that just find any excuse to post a video every single day. Those are the people that are milking it. But if they're on your side, then of course you're going to assume that they're the good guys. But my point is, there just hasn't been anything interesting for me to talk about, right? Like there was the whole Xbox thing where Phil Spencer steps down, whatever. It's like, look, we covered Xbox's collapse last year, like all this stuff, none of it is new, right? None of this stuff is new. Pokemon Pokopia came out, it got reviewed well. I covered it here on the channel. It sold really well. I mean, there's really nothing to talk about. There's nothing that I'm really interested in here. And I'm not just gonna like spin up some random BS just to post a video every day. It's stupid. That's never been my goal. That's never been my intention. The haters think it's all for money, but I mean, the evidence proves it's not. I post when I feel like it. I post when there's something that I think is interesting, and that's pretty much it. The other thing too is I've really been thinking about like, what do I want this channel to be, right? Like that's the other thing that sometimes when I'm thinking about like, okay, what video topic do I want to cover now? And like, I think really I've come to the conclusion that I do kind of want to focus more on just covering topics that gaming consumers should really care about, right? Like that's kind of been like the underlying theme throughout a lot of these videos, whether I'm talking about Pokemon or Nintendo or sales data or whatever. I like to talk about, you know, the value that the consumer is getting and sort of the outcome of that, right? Which is why when we look at like sales data and stuff like that, it's like, you know, oh, this is doing really well, or this is doing worse than expected. And why might that be? Oh, well, it's because of this, that, or the other thing. Or, you know, the Switch 2 still doesn't have a YouTube app or a Netflix app. Like there's just like these consumer rights concerns are things that I care a lot about, on top of just being a Pokemon fan historically, a Nintendo fan historically. And so when things happen that I don't like, I'm going to cover that because I think it's bad for the consumer, right? And I think that's kind of one of the things that I like talking about the most on this channel, is things that should be of the concern of the consumer. But the problem that I've run into is that with Nintendo and Pokemon specifically, the consumer doesn't care that they're getting a bad deal. And I know that sounds weird, and like I guess maybe this is my own fault. Like I misjudged. I calculated that like surely people would care that they're getting scammed, but Nintendo consumers are very different from regular gamers, really. I mean, that's really all it comes down to. PC gamers don't spend $70, $80, $90 on games, right? Like they just simply don't. They wait for it to be on Steam summer sale. They wait for, you know, whatever. And that also is the case for like every other industry, right? Like normal people aren't gonna just get price gouged when it comes to buying a TV or when it comes to buying a computer, right? Like the reason that Apple just released a new MacBook, it's $600. It's like the best value you could ever get for a Mac. That's what successful companies are doing right now, right? Like they're delivering a maximum value to the consumer, whereas the Switch 2 is the most expensive Nintendo console that's ever been released, right? And there's only like 3 good games for it still after 9 months, and one of them's a game key card. Like it's just the Nintendo consumer and the Pokemon consumer just has gotten so screwed for so long that my videos talking about what's best for the consumer really don't land for a lot of people. A lot of people don't really care because they're like the Disney adults of gaming, right? Like they are so brand loyal that they don't know, or they don't care they're getting spit on. And so it kind of makes me feel like I'm like kind of ranting to a wall, right? Like it's like the J. Cole quote, right? Don't save her, she don't want to be saved. The Nintendo and Pokemon consumers have already accepted their fate. Like they are just getting screwed over whether they know it or not. They don't care either way. So like, what's the point, right? Why should I make videos that are pro consumer for consumers that don't want to be treated as well as everyone else in the industry? And so I've kind of just taken a little bit of a step back to kind of recalibrate and think about like, what do I want the future of the channel to be? And I think, you know, I probably still will. I can't really help myself, right? Like I will still call out bullshit. Like it's just, someone's got to do it, right? I mean, like it is what it is, whether the consumers care that they're getting screwed or not. Maybe one day they'll wake up and realize it. I don't know. So that's still going to be the cornerstone of the channel, but I don't like forcing videos, or I don't want to force videos just to put out a video, right? And if I don't care about a topic, I'm probably not going to talk about it, right? Like, oh yeah, I could easily get 10-20,000 views off that video, but I don't care. It's just, if it's something I don't want to talk about or care about, then I'd rather just not make a video about it, right? And just frankly, over the last few months, there just hasn't been much to talk about. The consumer gets screwed, they guzzle it down, and it's like, okay, well, okay, then I get that there's nothing to talk about, right? I mean, like, they just accepted it. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. So it's just been a mixture of like a bunch of traveling, burnout, and just being kind of jaded with like the Nintendo and Pokemon community. It's just like, you know, even with Pokopia, in my video where I talked about it, I actually beat Pokopia, by the way. I got the Magnemite flying ability and everything. Like I went all the way through. I've been playing it alongside my girlfriend, right? I actually beat Pokopia, and I still think my 7 out of 10 rating is fine. It's fair. Again, the game is satisfying. It's got a good gameplay loop, and it's enjoyable to play. I had a good time playing it, but as somebody who typically doesn't play that genre, I can't really say it's like this life-changing experience. I mean, there's literally no enemies, no challenge, no puzzles. Like there's nothing, you know, it's literally just a satisfying checklist, which is fine. Like that's what, I mean, Pokemon's whole slogan is got to catch them all. So a satisfying checklist is kind of like a cornerstone of Pokemon as a franchise. But even with me, you know, coming out and saying like, hey, the game's enjoyable, it's whatever, I still got people commenting like, dude, you're so negative, bro. It's like, dude, even when I say that I think the game's gonna sell like as well as Legends EA, right? I came out and said that. You can check my video. I thought it would sell really well. Turns out it did. I even come out and say, hey, I think it's like a 7 out of 10. I think the game is enjoyable. People still think I'm not. It's never enough, right? That's what I'm trying to say. It's never enough with the Pokemon and Nintendo community. If you don't think everything's a 10 out of 10, then they hate you, right? Which is just like exhausting after a while. It's like, oh God, I almost don't even care if these people are getting scammed anymore, because it's just like, unless you're sucking down the copium, then you're an enemy to them. It's like, ew, I don't want to be a part of that community. So if you don't say Pokopia is a 10 out of 10, then they think you think it's a 0 out of 10, right? Like that's how their brains are very it's binary. It's a very low IQ way to live life, but I mean, it is what it is. So that's kind of where I'm at, right? So I just taken a little bit of a step back, because I'm like, man, this whole Nintendo Pokemon community is very toxic, and they don't care about consumer rights or protection or anything like that. So it's like, I don't even really sometimes know what I'm doing here. Like, if y'all don't care, then just maybe I'll just let y'all get scammed, and like maybe you learn the hard way, maybe you never do, I don't know. But that's kind of where I'm at. So you can expect videos when I want to post them, pretty much. I will try to be more regular than posting once every 2 weeks, okay? It's just I've had a lot going on the last 2 weeks, so it's kind of been like a perfect storm of making me unavailable to make these videos, which is annoying, but that's kind of where I'm at. But guys, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, consider dropping a thumbs up on it. It really does help out the channel a ton, and you might think you're subscribed because you've seen a ton of my videos, but you're actually not. Double check down below. My friend recently told me that he was unsubscribed from my channel at no fault of his own. YouTube just unsubscribed him. Okay, so you guys might think you're sub, but they actually unsubbed you. Double check down below. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.